Okay, hey everybody, this is going to be the Minion Backup intro. I'm recording this, so for those of you who have never seen anything about Minion Backup before and wonder why I'm always spouting off of the mouth about it, you're going to get to see a lot of the stuff we can do. There's no time, there's never any time to do everything I want to talk about. Moderating the questions today is going to be Andrea Allred. She is a power user for Minion Backup, and she definitely knows the score. She's using it in her entire environment, and she's even using the enterprise version as well with lots of specialized configurations. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and if Andrea knows it, she'll answer, and otherwise she'll interrupt me, and you'll get an answer hopefully within a couple minutes. So. And if I don't know the answer, well, then you just SOL because I wrote it. So
you'll figure it out. You know that stuff off the top of your head. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've got source code access. Okay, actually, y'all do too. So okay, so I've got a tiny slideshow, not really much, and let's hope that it goes okay. I'm going to start it, and we'll see. Oh, I've got to share my screen first, don't I?
That might be a little helpful. I don't know.
Right? All right, so tell me if you see the slideshow.
I see Minionware.
Perfect, that's the slideshow.
Okay.
All right, guys, so like I said, this is Minion Backup intro, and we are Minionware software. We are the only company in the world comprised of only MCMs, which is really impressive until you find out there's only two of us. But we write the Minion suite of products, and that's comprised of, trying to figure out how to work the slideshow, of Minion Reindex, Minion Backup, and coming very soon, Minion CheckDB. It's in beta right now, and so far people are just loving it, right? And also our flagship product of Minion Enterprise, which is an enterprise management solution that allows you to manage thousands of boxes from a central location and do some really incredible things, including managing your backups centrally and reporting on them centrally. And I think Andrea could talk on that as well, but I'm not going to give her the chance. But
totally fair.
That is, well, I would, but I've got so much to talk about in backup that I can't afford even myself even these little tangents. So that is the end of our slideshow. I just wanted to talk about that really quick, and let's get into Minion Backup. Let me make sure I'm on the right box. I'm on the right box, and I'm in the right database. Perfect. So when you install Minion Backup, let me see what I have here. Backup demo. Okay, so here's the installer, and very easily. Now, I've heard this from people before that they say that they like other products because they're so easy to install, and Minion Backup is actually relatively complicated to get up and running, but it's really, really not. The only thing you have to change is your backup location. So tell me the drive and the folder where you want to put the backups. And if you want, you can set your retention hours. After that, just run the backup, and it creates the job with the schedules, and it creates the rows you need, and that's it. The only reason that I make you do that is because I couldn't possibly know where you want to back up your databases, right? But as far as installing it goes, yeah, just set your backup location and then hit go, and it'll do the rest. So that makes it a lot easier to install it on across dozens or hundreds of servers, because we even give you a PowerShell that you can use to deploy this to your entire environment at once if you wanted to, using these settings. So installing Minion Backup is extremely easy. Configuring it is really easy as well. Once you get over, there are a couple concepts to learn, but once you get over those concepts, the rest of it just falls into place, and it's really easy to work with. And the advantage is that these changes that you make can easily be rolled out to your entire environment. You don't have to change jobs. You don't have to change job steps. You don't have to dig through code. All you have to do is change a couple settings in the tables, and you're golden. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm just going to jump right in and show you our main setting table and show you how some of the things work. So if you look at backup settings, and this is a fresh install, this is what it's going to look like when you come in or when you install it from the beginning. So Minion default means all the databases. The way this works is you set up settings for all the databases, and then you set up exception rows for different databases and backup types. So by default, all of your databases and all of your backup types are going to be included in the backup. They're not going to have any special ordering. They're not going to be mirrored. You're not going to delete the file beforehand. Of course, you could, right? So some environments, it happens every now and then, where you have to delete the backup file before today's backup kicks off. We know that's a bad idea, but sometimes you're forced to. So I wanted to give you the opportunity. I wanted to give you the option to do that. But I also make you agree that you know it's a bad idea before you do it. History retention days. What that means is how long are you going to keep the log data? Because we've got 2 log tables, 3 log tables, and this is going to determine how long you keep data in there. The log loc and the Minion trigger path, these guys are Minion Backup Enterprise features that control where you drop your log data to be picked up by the repository. Any database pre-code or post-code that you're going to run. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but on a per database basis, do I want to run any pre-code or any post-code? And there are some really cool things you can do with something like that. And we've got customers, and Andrea is one of them, who are actually taking advantage of this in some really interesting ways. So dynamic tuning, we're definitely going to talk about that, is turned on. Whether or not you want to verify the backup files afterwards. Preferred server, this is an AG feature that we may or may not talk about today. Shrink log on log backup. Now, I've heard some people, get onto me about this one. Well, it's not a good idea to shrink the logs. Well, sometimes it is a good idea to shrink the logs when you've got a process that blows your log out to 50 gigs or 90 gigs, or when your log backup has failed for a day and a half, and then all of a sudden something gets fixed and it starts up again, but it's grown to 50 or 90 gigs in that interim, right? You may want it to shrink, and you may not want to have to get out of bed to make that happen. So what we've done here is we've said, okay, shrink log on the log backup, but only if it's over 5 gigs or 5,000 megs, right? And then shrink it back down to 10 megs or shrink it back down to a gig, whatever you like, right? So we'll only shrink it if it crosses that threshold, and then we'll shrink it down to the size you want it. Also, the minimum size for diffs. So sometimes, taking diffs on a 1 gig database is just ridiculous, right? So we let you choose the minimum size for that. So don't take diffs on anything under 10 gigs or 20 gigs or 50 gigs, something like that, right? And then what's that diff replace action going to be? What type of backup would you like to take instead of a diff? Would you like to take a log backup or another full backup, something like that? Log progress just states whether or not you're going to log the detailed progress in the log. I think that's on anyway. I don't think I'm actually using this. I think I put that in as a placeholder and then just turned on all of the logging anyway. File action and file action time. File actions, we have the ability to perform actions on files after the backup. So that would be like being able to copy a backup file to a dev location or to an offsite location, or being able to just flat out move it somewhere else. And then the file action time is either going to be after backup or after batch. So if I've got, 300 databases on my server or just 30 databases on my server, I may not want to stop backing up my databases just to copy a database file somewhere. So I may set this to after batch instead of after backup. So it's going to back up all the databases, then it's going to go back and copy all of the files that need to be copied or moved, right? Or you can put an exception row in here for a single database, and you can have the default row be after batch and have the exception row be after backup. So that one database's backup file will be copied to another location right after the backup, because maybe it's that important. but all the others will be saved until after all of the backups are finished. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Do I want to encrypt the backup? And the rest of these guys are all backup parameters that come directly from Microsoft, right? Checksum, init, format, backup error management, which is going to be your skip on, or stop at error, right? Media name, and whether or not this row is active. And there's a lovely comment in here that allows you to put a comment in there what that row is for, and you're going to see that in use a little bit later as well. Okay, so that's the overview of that. Let's go ahead and I never get to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it now. Read-only databases. We let you choose how to back up your read-only databases because, sometimes when you've got a lot of read-only databases on a database, you don't want to back them up every day because it's pointless to back up a read-only database every day. Maybe you only want to back them up once a month, or maybe you want to back them up once a week, or maybe once a year. Hell, I don't know, right? So we allow you to adjust how your read-only databases are being backed up. And if you combine this with the scheduler table, which I may or may not get a chance to show you today, then you can set up in the scheduler table, because we don't really run off of agent schedulers as much as we do we've got a table where you can lay out all of your schedule, which again makes it really easy to change the backup times for your entire environment, right? But you get to specify the read-only setting. So you can say on the first of the month, I want to back up my read-only databases, and any other day I don't want to, right? So that becomes really handy, and you don't need an extra job to do that. But just to show you here, I'm running this with statement only, so it's only going to produce the statements. So this is going to be all of them, right? And let's see, I know I've got some read-only databases in here. There we go. I've got these 3 read-only databases in here. AdventureWorks is right there. So read-only 2 means no read-only databases. There we go. AdventureWorks fell out, and so did Bit and Bob Test. Neither one of those are in there. Now I only want to do read-only databases, which is setting 3 right there, right?
Well,
so
and
all of them.
Sean, the part that I love about this is when you flip over to messages and can see what it's going to write for the message, like for the backup command.
Right. Yeah, right there. Absolutely. So you can see that if you combine this with the scheduler table, I can say on the first of the month, and it detects that. That's an actual setting, first of month. I want to run, I either want to run it with the 1, which means include them, or with a 3, which means only do them, right? So you can have that skill, and you don't have to worry about it. On the first of the month, every month, regardless of when it is, your read-only databases are going to be included in your backup. And every other time, they're not going to be. So that's pretty nifty. All right. Now let's make some database overrides here. So I'm going to insert a few rows. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got now. So right now I've got my Minion default, and this is all of the databases except the ones that have database overrides. So Minion install, TDE backup test, and DIY perf reporting all have overrides. And the reason I've overridden is so that I can set the group order. So I want these databases to be backed up first. This is a weighted system, right? So that means that the higher the group order, the higher up in importance it is. So 10 is going to be backed up before 9, which is going to be backed up before 8, and then every other database is catch as catch can, right? So if we do this again with read only equals 1, statement only equals 1, you can see now that I've got these 3 databases being backed up first because they're the most important, and then everything else is set at 0, and it can do it for whatever. And also, you notice here that I've got these set up for backup type all. So even if I run a log backup, I'll still maintain my ordering for log backups because I've said backup type all. Now, if I, I've got something going on here. Okay, that's fine. So now, if I insert something for TDE backup test as a full backup, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So now I've got TDE backup test all and TDE backup test full. So this is an override for the TDE backup test setting. So the way this works is once you're at the database level, which means if I have an override row in here, then I can never, never, never go back to the Minion default row. So I've got a TDE all right here. I cannot get any settings from here. I have to do everything at the database level now. So I want all of the backups, all of the backup types for TDE backup test to do this, unless it's a full backup, and then I want it to have this setting, right? So let's see. I'm not sure if I was supposed to delete that stuff or not. So let's just see. So I'm going to exclude the full backup. So I'm just going to, that's why I inserted that, to show you that. Now I'm going to set that to exclude. So now I'm going to be excluding full backups for TDE backup test. You see it's no longer in there. Log backups will still kick off. There it is right there. And that's really kind of stupid, right? You'd never do that. So let's change that. Now we're going to be excluding logs. So now the fulls should show back up. TDE backup test full showed back up. And now we're excluding log backups, which is a little bit more realistic, right? So maybe you've got that one in simple mode, which it would be excluded anyway, but maybe you want to, maybe you want to explicitly exclude it, right? So now you could also exclude all. So I want to exclude this one as well. Am I excluding this one? Oh, that's just the exact same thing for a different database, so I don't need to show you that. Okay, so I'm going to reset this guy. There we go. And just to show you that we've reset, and we're back down to our default row. Now, let's look at the path table, because this is where a lot of magic happens. So this is where you define your backup locations. And I can see I didn't reset this properly, so I'm going to have to go back and reset that here in just a second. So when I was supposed to talk through that, but you know what? Let me reset that real quick while we're talking about that. I've got an update statement down here somewhere.
So Sean, while you're looking at this, can I tell people what I do with this, because I love it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite things. This was the main reason we went to Minion Backup. With this, I can copy things to different paths. So I can back it up to one path and then have it copy to another path, all without me touching it. So we were doing all kinds of SSIS packages and PowerShell scripts and stuff, trying to move it all around, and it was different for every server, and it was a pain. And now we have it all set up in Minion Backup. We set it up one time, and it just works, and it's great. I love it. So it's super easy. This is where we use the DBA precode and postcode. We actually use the DBA precode. We have it determine what day of the week it is, so I can copy things to different places based on what day of the week it is, which I think is fantastic. And yeah, I love it. I love it.
Beautiful. God, I love hearing that. Okay, so I got it set back to where it needs to be. Yay. All right, so I'm going to enter in. So I was supposed to talk you through these columns again, and I keep getting ahead of myself. Stop it. Go away. There we go. Okay, so database name. So this is the location. Again, by default, this is all of the databases and all of the backup types, and they're all going to go to the same location. Server label we're going to talk about in a minute. This is not a mirrored location. I'm going to retain the backup files for 24 hours. Here's my file action method and flags. So file action method is really cool, because that's where you're going to define the copy or the move or the copy and move, right? You can copy it and then move it if you want to. And then these file action flags are going to be any extra flags that the command takes. Now, when we're on file action method, I allow you to use, I think, 4 or 5 different methods. I think I've got that in here somewhere. I thought I had that in here. Maybe if it comes up again, I'll show you. I thought I had a call to the help. So you can use PowerShell, you can use ESEUtil, you can use Xcopy, you can use Robocopy. So all you would do in here is define Robocopy or Xcopy or whatever you want, right? And then any special flags you want. The path order, that means especially when you're copying, but also when you're backing up, what order do you want to write the files to? So I can copy it to as many locations as I want and in the order I want. So copy it to location 1, then location 2, then location 3, then location 4. And whether or not this is active. And that's really what Andrea is doing, is she's playing with this is active flag on different days of the week. So she's got her copy locations set up. So she'll have like 2 copy locations set up or 3. And then on Saturday, on every single day, she copies to this location, but on Saturday, she copies to this other location. So that's what that is active flag does, is it allows you to say, oh, well, you know what, flip this bit. If it's Saturday, then use this one. If it's set this one active. If it's any other day, then set this one inactive and set all these others to be active. So it's a really cool way to manage, a really easy way to manage these things. Okay. Now I'm going to use backup statement here. This is our statement generator, just to show you that we're going to generate the statement. Now this generates a statement. This generates one line for every file that gets created. So we're only using one file right now, but here's the statement that gets created based off of the settings. And then here's the path. And you can see we're even going to show you we break it down for you many different ways. And then there's the retention hours, and there's the buffer count and the max transfer size, the number of files that we're using, right? Same thing for the log. Nothing changes. Except it helps if I do just one of them. There we go. And now it says backup log, and then you get the backup location. Very easy. Now, I think it wanted me to reset that, so I'm going to reset that just in case. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to go in backup settings, and I'm going to set mirror equals 1, which since I'm doing for all of for the Minion default, that means I want to mirror all of my backups. But now I have to put a row in the path table. So now I've got a row for Minion default that is not a mirror, and for Minion dev, for this one database, I've got a mirror location, and I want it to go to SQL Backups mirror instead. This is a laptop, so I'm only going to do it to C, right? So Minion dev is the only one that's actually going to go a mirror location. And when I run my backup statement generator, you can see now I've got 2 files, and I did that something's D. Oh, you know what? I think I should have kept that other row I put in there. let me put these rows back. Yeah, I told you I was sure if I was supposed to delete those rows or not. There we go. Now, I've got 2 files because one is a mirror and one is the backup location. And even right here, somewhere along here, this one's not the mirror and this one is the mirror. But you notice how they have separate retention periods. So my mirror, let me go back into the paths table, if I can find that. There it is. Yeah, that's fine. So my mirror location and my other location have different retention periods. So I took a full backup, and I'm going to keep it for a week, and I'm only going to keep my mirror for 3 days. So every one of these backup path locations can have a separate retention period. And that's without any extra jobs, any extra job steps, any weird settings, any weird job settings. You could have 3,000 databases on a server, every one of them going to a different location, every one of them having a different retention period, and you won't have any extra jobs whatsoever. It's all controlled right here in the table. And you play with those any way you want to, right? But okay, where am I supposed to be now? I'm going to go ahead and run this back up so we can have something to look at a little bit later. There we go. Oh, I'm supposed to be showing you the mirror. That's what I'm doing. So let me go to C. And if the location doesn't exist, we'll create it for you. So where did I say we were? There's SQL Backups mirror. There's that. And you see I've got 2 mirrors here. And if anywhere that we drop a file, if the location doesn't exist, we'll create it if we can. And if not, then we'll shoot a warning or an error depending on what type of operation it is, right? Okay, now let's look at thresholds. Oh, I've already deleted that. Let's look at thresholds because this is one of my favorite tables. I don't have many tables, so the fact that this is one of my favorite means that they're all my favorite. But, you know, I'm a backup tuning kind of guy, so this is where I live a lot of the times, right? So again, by default, all of the backups and all of the databases and all of the backup types are going to have the exact same tuning threshold. So we're going to use one file and then the default buffer count and max transfer size for everything. We're going to compress by default because I don't see any reason not to. And the space type, data and index, that's how we calculate the size of the database. Because if I say that anything over 0 gigs is going to get these settings, then how am I calculating that space? And we give you a couple different ways to calculate that space. You can use data and index, which means we count up, we sum up the space of all of the data and all of the indexes and add them together. So that's irrespective of the size of the files, right? Because the size of the file could be 90 gigs, but it could be, you know, only 10% full. So the size of the file itself really doesn't mean anything. But I give you the opportunity to do that anyway. So I give you data and index, and I give you file, which means it'll take the size of the files into account, and that is the data and the log file. So, you know, use that at your risk, right? And then there's another one that I can't remember right now. But do you remember what it is, Andrea? Because I'm blanking right now on what the third one is. There was data and index, file, and there's size. Yeah, there's overall database size, which I think that one's the one that's the data and index. But anyway, I think files may just be the data files themselves, and then size is when you combine the data and log files. But I'd have to look in the help to see exactly what it is. But I give you 3 different ways to calculate the space. And so the dynamic tuning comes in when we set up tuning parameters in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do some inserts, and then we'll show you. Actually, I'll do this all in one. And here's what this looks like. So dynamic tuning, by default, if it's 0 to 20 gigs, I want you to use one file and the default buffer count. But if it's over 20 gigs and under 50 gigs, then I want you to use 4 files and 100 buffers, and then I want you to use a 2 meg transfer size. And we're going to use 2 megs throughout for this one. If it's between 50 and 100, I want you to use 6 and 200. If it's between 1 and 150, I want you to use 10 and 400, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you can see, as your databases grow and shrink, they're all going to use the number of files that you tell them to use, and there's not going to be any of this ridiculous, oh, well, I tuned my backups for my 500 gig database, and now my 2 gig database or my 5 gig database is using 20 files and 3,000 buffers too, right? That's just an absurd thing to do. So they can all have their own tuning settings based off of this default row. So this is all of the backup types and all of the databases. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to use our statement generator again. So what do we expect to see here? We expect, so that we're going to run this as if the database were 125 gigs. So we expect that to use 10 files and 400 buffers because 125 is between 100 and 150, right? So we're expecting 10 files and 400 buffers. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. There we go. So I got 20 files. Did I get 400 buffers? I got 400 buffers. But why did I get 20 files instead of 10 files? Right, well, let's take this other one. A named database, another named database. Let's do 150 this time. And I got 30 files. How many did I say I was going to get for that? I was expecting 15, but I got 30. Why did I get 30 and 20 when I was expecting 10 and 15? Well, remember, this file generator generates a row for every single file. And we've got it set to mirror right now. So you'll notice here that some of these locations are mirror locations, right? So when I turn off mirroring now, and then run this one again, I should get my 10 files, except I need to actually run more than a blank space. Now I get my 10 files. Now I get my 15 files. And I had my 10 and 15 files before, right? They were just being mirrored. Okay, that's not all. Now that I've tuned all of the backups, I want to tune a specific database. So now I'm going to enter in override rows for a specific database. And remember, once we're at this specific database level, it will never get rows from the default level again. So all of the databases on this entire server are going to get these settings, except Minion Dev, which is going to get these settings. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I think it's the exact same thing. So Minion Dev at 125, I'm expecting to have 7 files instead of the 10 files that I had before. So let's see if I get my 7 files. There we go. There's my 7 files. And let's do 125 just so that we're comparing. Now this one should get 10 files because it's coming from the default row. So there you go. Oh, and I just did that down here. Right. So there we go. Now we can take that even farther. Now we can go, or it should be further. So now let's enter in another Minion Dev row, and let's take a look at our thresholds table. So now all of the Minion Dev backup types are going to get these settings, except the fulls. I want the fulls to have this setting instead, right? And I want it to be every day between 9 and 2. I want it to get this setting. So you can see that the Minion all dev row for 150 is 10 files and 300 buffers, and it's the exact same for this one. So I haven't really said it differently, have I? But so you can say every day between this time and this time, I want it to have these settings. Now, why would you do something like that? Well, the more resources you use for a backup, the more resources you drain from users, right? I was in a really big shop a few years ago where I tuned the hell out of the backups, and every time the backups kicked off, users would complain that they could barely get any work done. Well, I had over-tuned my backups, right? And it just happened to be during the time that they were doing they were always doing their really big reporting stuff. So what I could have done is I could have come in here and I could say, you know what? Every day I want you to use these settings for the backups. Unless it's in this reporting cycle period, then I want you to drop it back down and use fewer resources. So it's really handy to do something like that. Now, let's enter in just today. So you can, I'll show you that. So now let's do another override and show you what that looks like. So now I've got another full row. Only one of them says daily, and one of them says Wednesday specifically. So every day I want you to use these settings unless it's Wednesday, and then I want you to use these settings. Now you could also use weekday and weekend, so you can have 2 different settings. On the weekdays, I want you to back up using, say, 10 files and 100 buffers because I've got a lot of users on 24/7, except on the weekends we get a really big lull in our business, so I want you to use 20 files and 1,000 buffers or 500 buffers, right, and just get the backups done, right? So you can even break that up for daily, weekday, weekend, or a named day. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. I should be able to pull that off. So now, if I want to take a full backup right this second at 200 gigs, I've got 30. And what was I expecting? Hopefully 30. 30 right there. And if you look at the all row, the other 2 rows that are over 150, I'm only looking at 10. So on Wednesday, between 9 and 2, which is definitely now, I want to use 30. And that's exactly what I got. And I even got that for the log backups. Now the log backups, or actually the logs, I only did that for the fulls, right? Yeah, I only did that for the fulls. Right there. So the log backups will take theirs from the all row, and it'll use the 10 files that it's supposed to for this one right there. There you go, the 10 files it's supposed to. And the log backups are smart enough not to go off of the size of the backup, but it'll go off of the size of the log file itself, right? So, okay, that's the backup tuning thresholds. Let's go ahead and take a look at how easy it is to copy a backup file to a different location. So here I just want to go into backup settings, and I want to set the file action to copy, and I'm going to do it after backup. So that means if I've got 30 databases, each database is going to back up, then copy, back up, then copy, back up, then copy, back up, then copy, right? If I had this set to after batch, they would all back up, and then they would all copy. So we give you a lot of flexibility in you know, setting the importance of your own stuff. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all those extra paths in there just to make sure that I've got everything set right. Now I'm going to enter in a new copy row path. And again, you're going to see how easy this is. So I've got my Minion default here, and now the backup type changes to copy. And then I just treat it like everything else, right? It gets its own retention period. So even backup files that we copy to a different location, we don't forget about. You don't have to remember or set up a new process somewhere else to manage them and to make sure that they get deleted on time, all of that. We'll still do that for you. And here I've got it set to robocopy. So, oh, here's where I had the Minion help. So here, if I come in here to that, there we go. So right here, valid inputs are null, which is the same as copy. I can do copy, which will do a normal PowerShell copy. I can do move, xcopy, robocopy, and ESEUtil. And ESEUtil is a bulk database copy program that comes with Exchange. And it's really, really good at copying really large files over a network. It doesn't do any validation. All it does is copy files, but it's to allow you to copy mailbox stores from one location to another one, really large mailbox stores. So it does a really good job of doing large file copies. So there's a little bit of extra setup if you want to use ESEUtil, but it's well documented. Basically, you just have to put the exe in a folder, and then Minion Backup looks for it in that folder, and then you're off and running. So, but you know, ESEUtil is a great way to copy files across a network. So, okay, now let's go ahead and run this and watch the copy come through. Now, where was I copying those to? I got to look at my path again. Okay, so I'm going Minion default copy 1. So let's come here and go Minion default copy 1. In fact, I'm going to get rid of all of these guys right here. There we go. Just deleted copy 1. Well, I tried to delete copy 1. I'm evidently using it somewhere. I don't know where I'd still be using it, but I wanted to show you that it was going to create it, but oh well. I can't seem to get it deleted, but that's okay. Here we go. Let's go ahead and run this back up. And then we should see the file get copied here as soon as the backup is done. And you can see here that we are in copy 1, and there it is. The backup was just copied to that location after backed up. All right. Now, let's copy it to 2 locations. So I'm going to insert another row here. And again, I'm going to show you that we have both of them set to copy. One of them is going to copy 1. The other one's going to copy 2. I'm using robocopy for both of them, although I don't have to, right? I could use xcopy for one of them if I wanted to. And they've got different retention period. So I'm going to keep this one for 24 hours and this one for 48 hours. And I'm not really forcing a path order, but I could, and it's the same weighted path. So if I want copy 1 to go first, then I would make that a 1 or a 10, something like that, and then keep this one at anything lower than that, right? Okay, and I don't think I have a copy 2. No, copy 2 is one of them that actually deleted. Good, so we should be able to see that folder come in when we do this backup this time. So let's go ahead and back up this one now. There we go. And then we should see that folder pop up down here at the bottom, right up under here. How's everybody doing over there, Andrea? Have there been any questions? I can't really see the guys right now while I'm in presenter mode.
The only question is, will the video be published to YouTube or some other place?
Yes. There we go. I can see copy 2 showed up right there. And there's our backup log, and there's our copied backup file. So we have copied to 2 locations now. Perfect. Now, this is really cool. Let's look at server label. So I'm going to change this for just one of these. There we go. And let's take a look at what we've got here. So server label. You notice when we back up to a location or copy to a location, it appends the server name to the path. Everybody does that. That's so that you can copy up. That's so that you can back up a bunch of servers to the same location, right? I mean, you have to do that. You have to put the server name in there. But the problem is when you have something like AGs, or you have a different group that prefers to look at a server a different way, right? So let's say we'll take the simplest scenario in AG because that's the more common scenario. But you really don't have to. You really don't have to use this with AGs. So you've got, say, 4 or 6 nodes, or maybe just 2, right? And at any time, your scenario could fail over and back up on another node. So it's on node 1 right now. Well, it would be backing up to C:\\SQL backups node 1, and then the database name, right? Or it would, and node 1, the database name, database name, database name. But then when it fails over to node 2, it's going to be going to node 2 instead. So the folders are going to be different. Well, and the same thing with the logs, right? If I'm running my log backups on another node from my full backups, then my full backups and my log backups could be running off of any node at any time, right? I mean, you could have these things in 4 or 5 different locations by the time it's all said and done. And to try to build a restore routine from something like that is absolutely ridiculous. So what we allow you to do is set the server label, which gives you an override of the server name. So instead of appending the server name to the location, it's going to append whatever server label you give it. And in this case, we went ahead and put in the FQDN of the server, but you could also put in the listener of the AG, or you could put in just some friendly name that you guys like the application name, right? ADP prod or something like that. It doesn't really matter. You can, and even when you're copying, so you can back it up to one location and copy it to this location and then copy it to this guy over here, because the other group that's going to use that backup knows the server as this and not as the server name itself. So you can use that as a way to even make things a little bit friendlier for each group, right? So let's go ahead and run another one. And this is going to be in copy 2. So I'm going to show you here in copy 2 how I've got the server name from the previous backup, but when it copies it to this next one, it's going to create a folder with the server label and then put the file in there instead. But we've got to wait for the backup to finish first. And it completed with errors. That's fine. I did something weird. I should have probably deleted something or not deleted something or something like that. I'll do a tiny little look-see here to see if I did anything weird. But did I turn off copying or something? Do you know? I I
I
could go
wonder
see
if
what
it's
the error
is
is.
it your server label that it's complaining about?
No. I use this server label all the time.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't going to show you this just yet, but let's take a look in the log and see what it says is wrong. And it's no. All right. Well, it worked 4 times this morning, and it didn't this time. I'd love to try and troubleshoot it now, but I'm not going to. I've done something. I've not turned something on, or I have funkified something in some way.
Michael's saying that he didn't think you highlighted everything, so try running it one more time.
Oh, okay. Well, that's possible, but we'll see what happens. And that says where backup path equals copy 1 anyway, so I was in the wrong folder anyway. Well, yeah, there it is right there. I was looking in the wrong folder anyway. Oh, yeah, I guess Michael was right because everything's fine this time. And good eye, Mike. Karen. That. So you can see I've got my previous one and I've got my new server level override, and that is an excellent little addition because let me show you how this works. Let's use this now to detect data centers. So I am going to put in 2 more rows here for MB demo, and this is you would really do this for everybody, but I'm going to do it just for a specific database. So right now I'm going to take this to NAS server 1, and then this one's going to go to C. One of these is active and one of these is inactive, and one of them is my DR site and the other one is my regular site. So what I'm doing here, and I would put this in as pre-code, right, just like Andrea's doing with her backup locations, and I would use it to detect. So if my backup location is different in my other DR site, I don't want to have to, when my box fails over, I don't want to have to manage that and say, oh, well, now I have to remember to go change all my backup paths, right? So now I'm going to detect, if server name does not equal production server, then I'm going to flip the bits on this, right, where comment is like DR site and comment is not like DR site. And otherwise, I'm going to make sure that the bits are set this way. So let's look and see what we've got now. So right now, the DR site is turned off and the other one is turned on. And since the name of my server is not production server, then it should turn on the DR site and turn off the production site. There we go. Now the DR site is turned on and the other one is turned off. So now it's going to use this location instead of this location to do its backups. So you can see we're even data center aware in that you can very easily set up pre-code. And I would probably wrap that in an SP and just call the SP, right? But you can do that for specific databases, or you could do it for all of the databases on there. Hell, you could do it for specific databases and backup types. And you can flip these bits on and off using any condition you want. This is just an example that we use for data centers, but you can do anything you want. Okay, let's turn off copying. And now let's do a shrink file walkthrough. So I'm gonna increase the size of my file to 3 gigs. This takes about a minute. So let's go ahead and see if there are any questions or comments so far from the Andrea gallery.
Oh, there's always comments from the Andrea gallery. The main question I have is, where is this going to be posted?
We'll put it up on our YouTube channel.
Okay, perfect. So that's a great answer to that one. And yeah, that's the only comment I have for right now.
Okay. So now if you look at the logs here, and we did that for Minion Dev. So Minion Dev has a 3 gig log right there. Now if I take if I turn on shrink log on backup, I want to shrink the log if it's bigger than 5 gigs, and I want to shrink it down to 10 megs. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And now I'm going to take a log backup. Shouldn't take too long. There we go. And now look at my log space again. And my Minion Dev has not been shrunk because I said don't shrink it until it gets over 5 gigs, right? But look at the relevant log backup data you get, right? You see this is the one we're looking at. So yes, shrink, and I give you all of the information. I give you the pre-log size, the post-log size, I give you the log reuse weight. I give you the number of VLFs, right? The percentage of the log backup used. I give you all of that good log backup info. So, or all that good log info. Now I'm going to increase the size of the log to 6 gigs, which should trigger our log shrink. Now, cool thing about this being AG aware is if you're taking log backups on a secondary AG node, you clearly can't shrink the logs on that secondary node, right? Because everything has to run from the primary. But Minion Backup is smart enough to know that it's on a secondary node, and it connects to the primary database and shrinks the log there, and then allows that log shrink to trickle down to the other nodes. So now let's go ahead and run this guy. We're taking our backup again. And this time it should have shrunk. And right there, now we're at 197 instead of 6 gigs that we were at before. And here is the relevant log info right here. So this is the latest one, and that was the one before that. So now you can see before and after. It was 6 gigs. Now it's 197 megs. There's a percent used. Pre and post log reuse weight, we've got the same number of VLFs, but last time it didn't shrink it. This time it did shrink it, and you don't have to get out of bed. You don't have to worry about it bothering other processes or anything like that, right? Okay, let's talk about backing up certs real quick. So I've got a cert table. I just emptied it, so it's completely empty. I want to back up server certs in this demo, but you can also back up database certs. So I want to say server cert. I want to give the private key password, and I'm going to encrypt it for you so you can keep it in the log. Oops, maybe I should not select. Maybe I should actually insert that row. There we go. So now in that table, I want to back up server certs. I've got the encrypted cert password, and yes, I definitely want to back up all of my server level certs. Now, I need to add a path for that. It's all about paths. This time the backup type goes to server cert, and I can tell it where I want to put the server certs, how long I want to keep them, right? So 216 hours, I forget how long that is. And the row is definitely active. So again, I can back it up to as many locations as I want. Let's go ahead, and for a server cert, it only backs up the server certs because they're in master when it's a master backup. So I could have just all the system, but I'm just going to back up the master right now. And I forget where I said to put that, but it'll probably be in something or other Whoosy Fraz. Let's see if we can find it. I think that folder needs to be created. So maybe we'll get lucky and we'll see that. It's still running. It's still running. There we go. And the folder was created. And then here are all of the certs and the private keys that are dated, so you can easily see where they are. Now let's go ahead and do another one. So I'm going to insert a second backup location. Oops. I want to do that from path. So now you can see I've got 2 cert locations, because certs are pretty important, right? So I'm going to do this one locally, and I'm going to do this one to a UNC path under cert backups. I think I've got that right here, cert backups. So I'm going to delete that folder, and we'll watch it be created as well when we do our backup. If I can find where I'm supposed to be, this looks good. I'll do this one just to stay in there. And so now we'll watch this one come in as cert backups from the other location, and then we'll watch these guys come into this one as well. So we're going to watch both of these folders. You can see them being created here, and then here's cert backups in the foreign location. So we have backed up the cert to both locations. Very nice. And you could do those in order as well, right? So now let's go ahead and force a backup error. I want to set this equal to, I want to set the drive equal to CD. And of course there's no CD drive, right? So in path, you can see I've set I've set this path to CD. Now let's go ahead and take a backup of, you know what, let's do all of them because I want to show you something specific. There we go. So this will take a minute. Okay, so while we're waiting, talk to me. What do you got, Andrea?
Well, I like how easy it is to troubleshoot stuff because I use that backup file, the backup log detail. I use that all the time because if for some reason something suddenly starts failing, it's usually that somebody's fat-fingered something when they were trying to update a table, or like I'm running out of space somewhere, or my logs are too big. I mean, it's stuff like that. And so it's super easy because I can go and look at that and it will tell me the error that I'm looking for.
Absolutely. And now we've made it a lot easier to report on those errors because not only do you get that stuff in the table, but you can also pass in parameters to the job that say fail the job on an error, fail it or fail it on a warning as well. So you can fail it on the error or on a warning or on both. So
nice.
We've made it a lot. So now if you look at let's look at the log tables. This is the last thing I'm going to get a chance to show you guys. So log tables are really, really cool. So you can see this last time we forced an error, right? So this is the backup log, and this is for the entire job. So it was complete with 3 errors because we tried to back up all 3 system databases and we tried to back them up to CD, so they all failed, right? The number of the databases on the server is 47, and I tried to back up 3 of them. Here, total size in meg is nothing, but I get my total runtime. I get any batch pre and post code that ran, when it stopped, when it started, any includes that were in there, right? So you can see the includes I've run so far while we were doing this demo, right? Any warnings, any regex includes or regex excludes and stuff like that, right? Now, if these were to succeed, look at this. We give the total backup size in meg, and that's the total backup size for all of the databases that are in that job. So if I backed up 47 databases in this job, it would sum up the backup size of all 47 of those backup files and give it to you right here. So that's a really easy way to monitor the size of your backups. Every single day you can come in here and say, oh, look, every time we take a log backup on the entire system, we add 2.5 gigs of data to the backup drive. That's a really easy calculation to make when you're starting to do trending now, right? Because now you got to do is take this and pop it in Excel, and you can easily estimate, how big your backups are going to be in, for the entire server in, say, 6 months or in a year. And if you've got the enterprise version, then you can do that entire thing in a single query for your entire shop. You don't have to go around to every single box and do it. You can do that for your entire shop, and that's really cool. Now let's look at the details table where we give you tons of stuff. Now you see here is where you get the errors. Not in a text file. You get them in the table itself. And if you've got the enterprise version, and Andrea can attest to this, we give you the error in the backup alert email. So you can easily see. You don't even have to go chase it down. So let's take a look at what this says. I do a little preemptive stuff here, right? We weren't able to create the folder, make sure your settings in the backup path are correct, and then the actual error follows, and we actually give you the error right here. A drive with the name CD does not exist. That's the error that we got returned back to us, and we give it right to you, and we give you a little hint on where to fix it if we can. And like she said, it's awesome because in the enterprise product we do give you a centralized alerting mechanism, and we give you the error in the alert email so you can say, oh, I see what happened. Or if you ran out of space, you can go, oh, okay, we ran out of space. But look at all the stuff we give you here. Percent complete. Now this is our live insight tool that I don't think I'm going to get a chance to show you, but you can see the progress of your backups right here in real time. We update this column so you can see, oh, it's 10% complete, then 23, then 47, and then 55, and then so on. You can sit here and watch it crawl through the databases and know how long it's going to be. any server label that was used. I was going to show you that other server label that we used, but that was for a copy, so that doesn't really count. Whether it's clustered in an AG, whether it's the primary replica. We give you the backup in time, the backup time in seconds, the megs per second. This is for you tuning experts out there like me. We give you the size, what the read-only setting was, the backup group order that was used, and at the same time we give you the buffer count, the max transfer size, the memory limit, the number of files. We give you the total buffer space, the file system alignment. We give you the sets of buffers, whether it was verified, whether it was compression, or whether verified was turned on, whether it was compression, whether or not it was set to copy and when, and how long that copy took, the uncompressed size, the compressed size, the compression percent, the backup retention hours, which isn't useful here anymore. That's just a holdover from before. How long you're supposed to keep the log, and so and look at all the stuff: pre-code, post-code, when it ran, when it finished, what it was run on. All of these settings, whether you have dynamic tuning turned on. There's our log stuff that we showed you before. We give you the file list, the number of VLFs, whether or not it's a TDE database, whether or not you wanted to back up the cert. Then we give you the encrypted cert password, which we do have a function to allow you to decrypt. So if you need to go restore a cert from 5 months ago, if you've still got it in the log, then you can go get that password that you used for the private key. And imagine what that does for your security now. You don't have your private key password sitting in clear text in a job parameter somewhere. You've got it encrypted. And you could change that thing every day if you wanted to, every week, every hour if you wanted to. You could have an automatic process that goes in there and just automatically generates passwords every day at midnight and changes that thing every single day, or even every backup type could have a different private key password, and they would all be stored right in here, and you could get them back just by running it through the decryption function. So this increases the security of your cert backups by many, many fold, right? So whether or not it's an encrypted backup and so on and so on and so on, right? So we give you so many things in here, just so much stuff in here. And here's some cert errors that I had before, some cert warnings because I didn't have the access to create the path. So you'll get warnings for anything that isn't an actual backup. So since it's called Minion Backup and not Minion File Process, right? The main goal is to back up a database. If the database gets backed up, then the job succeeds. If a cert doesn't get backed up, or if a file doesn't get copied, or if a file doesn't get moved, or something like that, then it throws it into a warning and tells you, hey, the database was backed up because that's my job, but these other things didn't happen that you wanted to happen. So we'll always put warnings in here like that. And I want to show you one other file table real quick. One other log, if I have it in here.
Yeah, while you're flipping over to there. Something that I've done is I've created a snippet so that when I'm troubleshooting, I don't have to deal with the whole big table because there's a lot of data there. So I create a snippet of just what I know I need for troubleshooting, and it's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. I do that exact same thing, right? In SQL prompt. It's not backup. Oh, it's just backup files, isn't it? There we go. So now we also keep track of each individual file as well. And I don't have time to get into the backup routine, but you can see all of the certs. There's a full backup. These are cert backups, and we keep track of every single file, what kind of file it was, the location, the retention period, the extension. So we break this file down for you many different ways. We give you the retention hour, whether or not it's a mirror. See, here's another location right here that we did earlier. When it's going to be deleted, and when it actually, and whether it was deleted, and then the date it was deleted. So none of these have been deleted yet, right? Maybe we got some down here, right? Some of these have been deleted, right? Down here. But so far, this is when it's supposed to be deleted, and this is when it actually was deleted and whether it was deleted. And whether or not it's an archive, if you flip this bit, then that means it takes it out of the delete routine and keeps it until you delete it manually. And then we keep all of the backup size stuff for you. Now, notice how all this stuff is null? That's because these are all cert files, right? They're not actual backup files. You come down here to the backup files, and now you get a lot of this stuff. And this is stuff that we pull a full header only for you. So if it's in the header only, we get it. And you notice how we give you everything, the LSNs and the backup start date time and all of that. We've got somebody who wrote a log shipping process based off of this table, because since we give him all of the LSN information, he needed a custom log shipping process. So he wrote his log shipping routine to just go through here and crawl through the LSN and then restore the database and restore the logs in order, as we give you all of this log information. See, there's the file name right there. And all they got to do is, based off of the LSNs, just go here, and they're doing it to a UNC path, and then just restore all of their log locations from that one place. And if you want to change any of the backup locations, any of the retention period, you just come in here and say, set ret hours equal to whatever you want it to be, and then you don't have to mess with the routine. If I want yesterday's backups or today's backups to have a different retention period, in fact, I do have somebody who's doing the same thing Andrea is with retention periods. Once a month, they have their monthly backup, and they need their retention period to be for a full month, because that's their monthly snapshot. So on the beginning of the month, he goes through and he sets the retention period to something different. So he's got a separate row in the path table for his first of month retention period, right? So on the first of the month, he turns that row on, and that backup gets a different retention period. On every other day, he flips it back, and it has the normal retention period. So we've got somebody messing with that in another way from what Andrea is. And just so that you can see what this looks like really quick, here is that scheduling table I was telling you about, where you can say daily or weekday or Sunday or first of month or last of month or first of year or last of year. And then you can set the beginning time and end time. Here's where you can set that read-only setting 1, 2, or 3 that we were talking about. And so this allows you to set those parameters. So even if you want to run different settings at different times, this is where you would set that. So if I want to have a batch pre-code that sets something for the entire batch only on the first of the month, this is where I would do that. I would set that batch pre-code right here for my fulls, and I would put first of month right here, and then on the first of month it would run that pre-code, and that's where that would figure out and flip my retention bit setting or something like that, right? So that is...
we do have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any way to choose the format of name of the multi-file log shipping? For example, instead of 1 of 5 dbname.back, it would be dbname _full _ 2016 0601 _ 1 of 5.bak.
Right. So I've had that request from a couple other guys, and I'm thinking about ways to do that in version 2. Right now, you're stuck with mine. There is a way. You can go into the statement generator, and you can change the way it's generating its statement. You can dig into the code and customize it right now. But I am looking for a way to do that in version 2, because I've had 2 or 3 others request that. So I do want to make that happen for you. But right this second, you either have to live with my naming convention, or you have to dig into the code and change the way that the file names are being generated. Anything else?
That's it. There was someone that asked earlier about log shipping, and they wanted to know about log shipping, but then they left. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, they don't want to know that bad, then, do they?
Right?
Okay, guys. So really, really quick, let me finish up here. I'm going to skip down to all the way down to here. Well, I thought I was going to skip all the way down to here. I guess I don't have it. Nope, that's something different. Okay, so you can download Minion Backup from minionware.net. And, you know, while you're there, go ahead and take a look at Minion Enterprise. We've got a lot to offer. If you like this product, then Minion Enterprise has a lot of the same features. We have a lot of the same follow through. We really take the user into account, and we do as much for you as we possibly can. And we're really easy to work with. If there's something that's not in the product, we'll usually add it for you, if it's, you know, within reason, right? But we've like our last.
I love that it's like a holistic environment approach. Like you're looking at your whole environment, not just pieces here and there.
Exactly, and Minion Backup Enterprise is the same way, right? It's the same thing. It's only the Minion Backup piece, and you can manage your. So all of these settings that we're talking about here, about being able to change backup locations and paths and file retentions and all that, get done. You could do it for your entire shop for thousands of boxes from a single location instead of having to go around to every single box and do that. And you get all of your reporting from a single location. And I've actually got a webinar that's already posted on our YouTube channel that show you all of the features of Minion Backup Enterprise and how to work with them. And there's some really nifty stuff in there, especially being able to configure reporting, because it is so cool to be able to configure reporting the way we do. Nobody does things the way we do. I personally think it's a really innovative approach. So you guys feel free to go on there and take a look. And other than that, I'm going to take a look at our attendee list. I think I can see that. And if nobody has any questions or comments, then I'm going to go ahead and hang out for a few minutes. We can unmute everybody. In fact, let me see if I can make that happen easily. I can. Oops,
The conference has been muted.
No,
the conference has been unmuted.
There we go.
There you go.
And I've got everybody unmuted, and you are welcome to ask questions as you like. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.